Okay, continuing from the last video, what I did is I added all the screws, the 3/8 inch button heads. I made sure that all of the standoffs were placed in the claws and in the piece. And then I constrained all of the bearings. I have 2 up top here, and then I have 3 at the bottom. We're going to place a motor here with an axle going through, so we do not need a bearing on this side. What we do need to do is add the nuts and then add the motors and etc. And other parts. Also, from the picture on the assignment that I gave you, you couldn't really tell there will be standoffs here supporting the plate so it doesn't spread apart when the gears are going back and forth. I'll show you that and put those in later. So I'm going to first do a constraint and do an axial constraint here, and I'm going to constrain that here, and that's where the claw is going to go. And I'm going to just go undirected, go apply, and then this can spin. We will get the vertical positioning of this later when we put in all of the spacers and standoffs. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. This claw actually needs to be flipped around. I'm going to do a constraint here and here, and it's still not flipped around. I'll show you how you can do that. I'm going to go undirected, go apply, and then what I'm going to do is go constrain and have like this top flush with this top, and then that will flip that around. So now that we have those pieces on these axes, we can start putting in some of the other parts. You can notice you can drag this up and down. There's no height constraint right now that keeps it constrained in between, but we will do that later. What I'm going to do is go back to the assembly and go to place. I did add the lock nut. It should be, if I can find it, sorry, the nuts keps. I put this in the classroom stream. You're going to need to copy it to the Vex Parts folder. Sorry, I didn't include that initially. These all need nuts, so you can see I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we'll start with 10. Now, for sake of time, I am not going to show you how to constrain every single one of these, but I'm going to stop the video and do some assembling and then come back in a few minutes so you can work on this on your own, but I'll show you how to do this. Basically, I do a insert constraint, select the bottom, go here, zoom in, and then select this, and then go apply. Click here, and then here, apply. I'll show you one more. Click here, here, apply. Okay, now that we have that, I'm going to bring in some other parts. I'm going to show you how to place the axles, and so or the shafts, whatever you want to call them. So there should be a shaft, and there's actually 3 of those that go in, 2 for the claws and 1 for the motor driving gear. Okay, these are a little more challenging because they are square, and so you don't have easy access to a center axis. You could go constrain with a insert constraint and choose the top circular face, and then you can select this here. Now what it does is it mates that the two axes together and those two faces. The challenge is that it's sticking up, and so to get it to stick down, you need to include some offset. And notice if I put maybe like a positive 2 inches, it goes one way. If I go, looks like I clicked a button. Let me do this again. So I'm going to go insert, click here. So a positive 2 goes one way and a negative 2 would go the other. Now, negative 2 isn't quite enough. So we can increase that, maybe negative 2.5. And you can play with the numbers until you're happy, until that axle is kind of centered there. So that's one way of doing it. Another way that I like to do a lot is actually click on the part, scroll down here and find the part, expand this, go to the origin tab for that part, and find the z-axis. And you can see that the z-axis goes directly through. And then I can constrain this z-axis with this axis. And we can go like an undirected and go apply, and then this is constrained like this. Then what you can do to get it at a certain height is you could do like a flush constraint, maybe this flush with that. Really doesn't matter which way you do that, but that's how you can get those axles in. That's two different ways. We will put the third one in once we get the motor in place. Might as well just place the motor in. To get the motor, it is an assembly, the motor, so I put it in this separate folder. So if you go to the V5 motor, scroll down, find the V5 Smart Motor Assembly, go open. We'll place that. And you can right click OK or hit escape to get out of placing additional ones. The side that the motor is going to go on is the side that I put the bearing on. We could have put it on this side if we would have put the bearing over here. The part, this part is symmetric. So basically the motor is going to go and be held in at these two holes here, and then the axle goes through here. And so one way to do that is go constrain, insert, and you can select there and click here, and then we can do the same thing here. You can maybe notice if you don't have a constraint, this thing can turn, so we can go constrain, select this axis with this axis, and go apply. Now one thing we do need to do is get screws in there. Let's do the axle next. So I'm going to click the shaft, expand here, find the origin tab, expand that, click on the z-axis, go constrain. I'm going to constrain that z-axis with this central axis and go apply. So now that this is constrained here. Now to get it at the right height, what we really want to do is get this jammed up in the motor. As you know by now, this has to be up far enough into the motor. It kind of bottoms out in there. Problem is I can't really see that easily. One thing we could do is hide this part. If you want to right click and go visibility, you can make that part invisible. We can see up there a little bit better. You could even make this part invisible. Right click, visibility, so we can see up in there. Basically this axle needs to touch this face when it's all the way in. And so what we can do is do a constraint and select this face, shift middle mouse to rotate until we can see the top face here, and make that a mate. And so those two faces are mated, and then I can go apply and close that. And then we can bring these two parts, if I select them, I can control select, right click, and make them visible again. So that's now at the right height in there, if you want those details. One thing I'm noticing is that this axle is in the way of the motor. It's going to interfere, and so this axle actually has to extend further down so that it doesn't interfere there. And if you remember, when we set that first axle we had an offset here, and so maybe we can go like negative 3.25 or something like that. We can change that number, and now that is sticking down. What I would typically do is just choose a shorter axle, but I did not provide you different axle lengths. But in real life, you could choose a shorter axle so it doesn't stick down so far. All right, I'm going to stop there, but what I'm going to do is put some screws in, or put the rest of the nuts in, and then I'll come back and show you how to put the screws into the claws here and how to put the spacers and gears and shaft collars, and that should finish up the assembly.